How great would it be if the government went on a Bitcoin standard, right? Then you could hold every politician and every bureaucrat accountable. How would they hide the money with everybody looking at the ledger? Why would I want one big centralized company to take on a huge position? As far as the price goes, that's taking on, a lot of risk, I would think. As a Bitcoiner, you don't want that risk. The reason you're in Bitcoin is because the only risk you want is math. If centralized entities custody everything, then it's just a transparent ledger. You get the transparency of knowing where your money is, but you don't have the ability to do anything with it if push comes to shove, right? Real estate tax, income tax, death tax. And just give me, build it into one thing, build it into the price of everything and let the retailers extract the tax then and pay it to the government. Make it easy. This is what we're doing. We're trying to seed a unit of account everybody can trust.
Are you satisfied with the way Bitcoin has been in the last couple of years? I think since the podcast is almost been 6 years since you done your first podcast.
Oh, extremely satisfied with Bitcoin, the protocol, the technology, and the slow progress it's made. I'm very satisfied, extremely satisfied with the price. Just the narrative, the narrative when things are going up is just stupid. It makes you think, it just makes you think, like, why are people here in the first place, right? I mean, number go up is great, but number can only go up if enough people have the fortitude to take custody of their wealth and are willing to take that risk.
It's super interesting also because obviously the price had an amazing route the past 5 years. It's almost like a 10x from here, depending on where exactly you pointed. But how did what are some of the changes that happened to the protocol? I mean, there have been some small upgrades. It was after the block size wars that we just talked about. So it's been less of less of controversy around that, but there still have been some upgrades and some developments in there. What was something interesting for you there?
Well, I think Lightning's come a long way. Not that I necessarily use Lightning for anything that I needed in my day-to-day life, but the times that I do use it, it works all the time now. It seems like there's a lot of money invested in it, and so I think that's good. The multi-sig companies out there are a lot more. There's a lot more of them. There's different types of custody. There's collaborative custody. There's different solutions for different people. So I'm really pleased in that. I mean, as far as the technology goes, I don't think Bitcoin has to do much more than it's doing right now, just accounting for Satoshis, right? That's really all it needs to do. You could build everything around that.
Yeah, it's more about building the ecosystem and building the second layers and the whole ecosystem around it. The base protocol is probably almost perfect and needs only small bug fixes and maybe some smaller upgrades in the future to keep it future proof and stuff like that.
Yeah, but I think as far as being a transparent ledger that you can trust and build stuff on, it's perfect. I don't think it needs to be any faster. I don't think it needs to handle any more transactions. The fact that, the only time it's busy is when people are doing stupid shit on it, as far as I'm concerned. So I think it's going to be a slow, long road. There's going to be a lot of different narratives, a lot of FUD, and it's going to go in different directions than any of us can preconceive. And I don't think we should encourage centralized authorities to take out leveraged positions just to make the number go up. That's the kind of thing that I just think is downright stupid, because that's anti-Bitcoin. Bitcoin's about the individual, an empowered individual.
What do you mean with centralized powers to take out leverage? Is like MicroStrategy, something like would you?
Yeah. Yeah, like perfect example, MicroStrategy. I applaud them for whatever they're trying, but I don't encourage that. I mean, why would I want one big centralized company to take on a huge position? There's just that's just as far as as far as the price goes, that's taking on a lot of risk. I would think, right? It's taking on a risk that, as a Bitcoiner, you don't want that risk. That's the reason you're in Bitcoin is because the only risk you want is math and your ability to custody a certain amount of those units, right? You don't want to trust anything else, right? And I mean, you got to trust the software and everything, but um, you know what I mean? That's basics. And now you're introducing a big centralized entity, which, like I said, people can do whatever they want. MicroStrategy can do whatever they want, but for the narrative of the Bitcoiner to change to like some of the stupid shit, you got to be dumb to follow some of these people who are on Twitter. And I followed them because I like to hear what the hell they have to say. But I mean, to listen to them, you really have to think twice. I mean, some of the stuff that was said when MicroStrategy was 500, you had to be a little bit skeptical of some of the people that were trying to pump it up even higher. So
You also see it as a concern that they now almost have like 500,000 Bitcoin.
well, yeah, I mean, as far as the price, I would be concerned with the price of Bitcoin, knowing that MicroStrategy has 500,000 Bitcoin. Yeah, I think that's a concern for the price, right? Because now you got a bigger decision maker with where I'd rather have 500,000 people with one Bitcoin than one entity with 500,000, right?
It's super interesting with Bitcoin because Bitcoin often gets attacked also from normies of like, the wealth distribution is so unfair, like the early OGs have way more money, but I feel like it's probably just because Bitcoin is so transparent. Like, it would be fun to see the same thing happening with like the US dollar and seeing the wallets of like things like that, or like
Right.
is stock portfolios or like real estate or any other asset. So it's interesting that we have that public ledger.
How great would it be if the government went on a Bitcoin standard, right? Then you could hold every politician and every bureaucrat accountable. How would they hide the money with everybody looking at the ledger, right? I once tweeted, instead of a central bank digital currency, what about a citizens controlled digital currency? Why don't we flip the switch on them? Make them use hey, you want to work for the government? That's fine. You're a servant. Use this transparent money, right? That's why we should have a Bitcoin strategic reserve to pay the employees, right? Wouldn't that be great?
It would be fun if all the government can only have like a Bitcoin wallet, and they have to give
Yes.
the public address publicly available, so we know it.
Yes, that would be fantastic. You want to, and you know what? It'd be opt-in. Hey, you want to work for the people? These are the rules, brother. There's no more of this paper money, and you don't have control of the checkbook anymore, and you definitely don't have control of the bank, and you definitely don't have control of the quantity of units that are in circulation. No more. This is it. 21 million. You want to work for us? You're getting paid in that. This way we can see what you spend your money on. If you don't want it, go work in the private industry.
There's some, I cannot find it right now. Elon and Donald Trump actually discussed that publicly, and like on Twitter, it was a discussion already long before that, but now it kind of reached the White House, where there are a lot of politicians that have like a net worth of like a few tens of millions of euros, but only earn like, I don't know, like 200, 300,000 per year, where I'm like, okay, they seem to make somewhere else a lot of money, to accumulate that kind of wealth if they're not building businesses. Maybe they have some insider trading or like there's something else going on where, especially as a policymaker, as someone that is a politician that can rule against or for policies that then influence companies and then betting on those companies.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. Now we have transparency. That holds people accountable. These politicians that are in right now, they did what they did. There's nothing you can really do about it. Let's get them the hell out of there. And if people want to come, work for the government in a transparent manner, I think we'll get a lot better people. I think probably right now I'm just guessing. I would say half the people in government are in it for immoral reasons, in it for themselves, in it for the cash grab, in it for the power, not in it to serve. That's a load of bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think politicians have usually a high tendency to being they really want to be in power, they really want to do something. I don't know if they do it for the money necessarily. Probably also there are a lot of them also, especially if you see their net worth and stuff like that, they do things with that. But they really tend towards like having some sort of power, and they don't see it as serving the people. Rather, they see it as like, oh, I want to have power over people, which is a flawed system to begin with, which is a really bad incentive.
I mean, it's a popularity contest. Once you get elected, you have to keep getting elected, and if you have the ability to make things easy on the people by printing money, they're going to make that decision 9 out of 10 times because it gets them reelected. And I think we're going to see more of that. I think they could talk all they want, but if you do the math problem here in America is it's pretty daunting. And you got this. I think what we're all going to learn is, they got the smartest guy supposedly in the world in there with the smartest people underneath them auditing and everything. And I think they're going to come out of this thing and they're going to tell us what they need to tell us, whether it be we got to up the tax rates, right? Or we got to print more money one way or another. They might say, hey, you know what? All this money we saved, actually, they already floated the idea of giving like the citizens a dividend. That's just another form of money printing, right? It's not like they really saved anything. They just reduced the amount of money they were going to spend in excess of tax collections in the first place. That's what they're talking about. Like, hey, we were going to spend 700 billion more than we had. We're only going to spend 500 billion. You know what? Let's give 100 billion of that savings to the people. It's all smoke and mirrors. At the end of the day, they have to print money. Either that or raise taxes significantly. And if they raise taxes significantly, people will just stop working. And people won't do business here. They'll go other places. So they'll if they want to stay in power, they'll print money.
There have been a lot of interesting studies around raising taxes. There's two things usually, like there's usually a point where people don't accept the higher taxes. And it's different where the point is, but there's something like a Laffer curve and stuff like that. But the interesting thing is like once you hire taxes above that one point, people either move to other places or cheat. They just like don't report income. The black markets, the black economy is growing rapidly, and both things you really don't want as a government. So like raising
anybody that's accumulated assets, they'll stop accumulating assets and they'll live off of them, right? Because why earn for somebody else if they're going to take more? I mean, my threshold is 50%. If I got to give more than 50% to somebody else, I'm not going to bother earning in a taxable manner. I'll barter with you, right? That's what, like you said, they'll go black market, they'll do other stuff. But if I got to go earn $2 to get $1, I probably won't.
50% is already high. My point is lower.
No, well, I'm being realistic. I pay federal and state is right there is 47. And that's without any of the taxes, any real estate tax, any other tax. That's just income. It's nuts. So
Yeah, that's also the system is kind of it's interesting because the income tax originally was introduced to target rich people, but it actually targets the middle class.
yeah,
as all the riches.
Hands down, no doubt, no
So
doubt.
anyways, I'm very much against taxes of income. Like why not just
Right,
tax the consumption of things would
right.
make way more sense.
If they actually simplified the tax code, imagine how many paper shufflers that would eliminate. Crazy. But yeah, I agree there 1,000%. Tax consumption, and let's be done with it.
I only have a very small company here with the podcast, where basically I provide for myself and like one more employee. And it's already kind of getting complicated where it matters how I invoice, it matters where I book stuff, and it matters that much of like, are you paying that amount or that amount plus 30% in taxes? So it's crazy how the complication of the tax law is making so many inefficiencies because you have a massive incentive to hire someone to look out for your tax code. Imagine how if it would be just very simple, like, oh, you buy something and there's like a sales tax, and that's the only compensation, and like it's just like 30%, and everyone has to pay that one sales tax, and that's the only tax there is. I imagine how easy it would be, and what all the tax guys and stuff like that will be just eliminated.
Well, I mean, what's crazy is that the government puts the responsibility on you to file your taxes. And if you do it wrong, they make it so complicated. And if you do it wrong, they have the right to put you in jail. I mean, just tell me what I owe you. If you can't figure out, what I'm doing and how much I extract from this planet, give me a number. Let's make it simple, right?
It's interesting because I'm in Austria, so like there's a little bit of a different system. It's actually in Austria, each month you work, you automatically get your taxes, like they are automatic. You don't even see them. The company actually pays, if you're an employee at a company, the company pays the income tax for you, and
Right.
you only get what's left over.
Yeah.
So in the end of the
We do it on a
year,
weekly or bi-weekly basis. Not too many people get paid by the month.
oh, you get it weekly and bi-weekly. Oh, like
Yeah.
it's common. Like in Austria, everyone gets paid by the month.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's 1 week. Most people get paid weekly here, but some people get paid every other week. We live hand to mouth here.
Interesting. I
Yeah.
heard about bi-weekly, but like no, I think it's. I never heard about anyone getting paid other than every month. I think that's the common here in Austria. But the point I was making, like you, as an employee, you lost your purchasing power right here and there. So you have to basically pay directly your taxes. And then in the end of the year, you can file your taxes and say like, oh, like I had this expenses, I have this things, or like there was some inefficiencies, and then you get some money back.
Right. Or have to pay more money. Or have to pay more money.
And more money, usually not. So like, no,
Well,
like,
what if you had a big capital gain on your Bitcoin? In Austria, do you have to pay taxes on capital gains?
yes, that's actually now in Austria also that the exchanges directly extract that.
What if how does the exchange know your cost basis?
That's why there are a lot of interesting things now happening in Austria with Bitcoin. There are some exchanges that are now only allowing you to sell Bitcoin held on their exchanges, which is really bad. So if you have Bitcoin from outside and you put it on their exchanges, you cannot put them on the exchanges. Like you cannot sell them because they don't know how you bought them, and so they cannot extract the capital gains tax from that. And there's an old law in Austria also where if you bought your Bitcoin before like February 2021, it's all tax free. So like if you bought them before, you don't have to pay any taxes on that, which is really cool because it's actually the majority of my stack is from there. So that's good, but the Austrian Austrian socialist ways, the consumer or the one that is buying Bitcoin cannot do anything wrong, and the exchanges have all the responsibility, but you can still sell Bitcoin. Like there are services available in whole of Europe and also in America where you can just pay a Bitcoin invoice and then they transfer you money to an euro account so you can pay your rent in Bitcoin, and then this you have to file yourself. So then you can actually have to pay later more. But like outside of that situation, you usually only get money back for that.
Because all the centralized entities are extracting the tax before you see your principal.
And that's why I think we have a higher tax rate in Austria because people don't see the amount of money they are paying to the government. It's a overall negative thing if people, like, I like it more if you actually have to pay your taxes, like as a company or like self-employed, you actually have to pay your taxes yourself. So you collect the money and then you have to deploy it, which makes people way more conscious about taxes, and also way more like, hey, like you're getting too much tax money from me. So I like the self-reliable way more than government is directly extracting the taxes.
Yeah.
And you don't even see the money ever.
Yeah, I would just like one way to tax me. Why do you have to get me from every single end? Gas tax, real estate tax, income tax, death tax. And just give me, build it into one thing, build it into the price of everything and let the retailers extract the tax then and pay it to the government. Make it easy.
Absolutely. How do you think Bitcoin will influence the tax system? What is the impact of Bitcoin on taxes long term if we actually have come to the Bitcoin standard?
Well, two parts. Number one, I think if they really wanted to encourage Bitcoin, as in America, they would make transactions under a certain limit tax free. And then I think you'd see a lot of people using it. But as far as long-term taxes, I think it's a good vehicle, I guess, to collect taxes, because the government can, especially in the US now, they just changed the tax law and they're actually giving you the ability to change the way you account for your gains. So if you were using, first in, first out, for all these years, and you said, hey, you know what? I want to change to last in, now first out, meaning you're going to pay. So if you paid, if you paid $10,000 for a Bitcoin, that was the ones you were selling, you were paying the gain. But now you can say, hey, the ones I were just was buying at 100,000, that's the one I'm selling. So they're doing that, I guess, to get everybody, out in the open, declaring how much they have in each wallet, if they want to take advantage of that new accounting rule. So I think you're going to see a lot of people, I think they call it safe harbor, declare safe harbor, and, declare where all their coins are and what their cost basis is on each of them. So I think it's going, it's an easy vehicle to tax for the government, right? If they choose to.
Yeah, it's interesting. What do you think is the impact overall on the politicians and the government systems when we have more Bitcoin coming in the system?
What is the impact on them? Well, I would hope, like I said, I would hope that they go on a Bitcoin standard too, and we pay them, and then there would be less fraud and abuse in the system because everything would be on a public ledger that the whole world would see. But I mean, I'm dreaming, you know what I mean? This is way out there, and but it's a radical thought.
Yeah, it's interesting also because did you see, did you kind of suspect that we are coming so far and so fast also to governments already talking about Bitcoin in 2025 after just like 16 years of existence of that young technology Bitcoin?
No, I'm not surprised. No, I'm not surprised. I think there's been a big effort to bring politicians into the conversation, and politicians want to get elected, so they need supporters. So they're, chameleons. They'll go along with, whoever's got the money, right? They'll go along with whatever you want to hear, they'll tell you. So of course, I'm not surprised at all. So if you go out looking for politicians to join your cause, they will if you have money. So
it will be interesting, a world where then the people that have money are Bitcoiners and not like fiat moguls.
yeah, but I agree. It hopefully they'll have better incentives, but
I don't know. It will be interesting to see if the world is so different. You said before we even started that you have a concern, or like you said like you want to get Bitcoin back to basics, and why it's the best asset of all other assets. What did you mean by that?
Like people taking part in the technology, not the money go up part, because it's the technology that you're able to self-custody your wealth. I got 2 bit axes sitting on my desk right now. They're mining with a node right between them. That's amazing. Just think about that. That's amazing. I'm actually taking electricity out of my outlet and I'm making Bitcoin that nobody knows about. And I have a device between them that keeps track of my Bitcoin and nobody knows about it.
That's the ultimate private money that we need, like Bitcoin mining. It's one aspect of Bitcoin mining which is really attractive for a lot of people. You get truly non-KYC Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean but I mean, yeah, that's awesome. And I'm getting, I'm probably mining with these 2 machines, probably about 10 cents a day of Bitcoin. But it's the fact that guys got together and designed these things. It's amazing. You could plug it into a regular outlet and actually be part of the network. And these things I hopefully are still selling like hotcakes. They were hard to get for a while. Now anybody can get them. They're like $165, $170. You plug it in, you connect it to your Wi-Fi. You don't even know it's there. And you're part of the network. You're not a huge part of the network. You're nothing. You're a grain of sand. But I mean, just think about it. That's the kind of part of Bitcoin, like the narrative that I like.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How easy are they? I have to get to set up a BitX. I think it's long overdue.
It's click. If you have a cell phone, you just turn on your Wi-Fi. It sees it. You get on its Wi-Fi. You put in your Wi-Fi credentials. You open up a mining account. If you do it with Ocean or Brains, you can collect sats, or you can solo mine like a lottery in hopes that you'll hit a block, which it's not. I have one doing that, and I have one mining to a pool just to get the sats. But It's great. I mean, it's the fact that you can do it and you don't need, when I first got in, that was one of the things that really amazed me was the mining aspect of it, that I could turn electricity into money without anybody knowing about it. And I was, at the time, I was Bitcoin was like $4,000, $5,000, and it was costing me like $18,000 a Bitcoin. But I did it, you know what I mean? Because I was just like on a rush doing it, and I knew I was. But in retrospect, it was 18. I was mining $18,000. I could have got more Bitcoin if I went and just took that money that I spent mining and bought Bitcoin direct. But I did both. I wanted to understand how the whole system worked before I actually invested any other money into Bitcoin. I wanted to earn it myself and see how you earn it and see how the whole system works, at least from a broad view. Like, I'm no genius, no, no computer genius at all. I just follow along. Um, but I'm smart enough to be able to follow along instructions and get stuff done. And I was just amazed by the technology. And, self custody is daunting. But even like I said, even now they have solutions with, collaborative custody and multi-sig where you feel you can go to sleep at night no matter how much Bitcoin you have.
I partnered up with Coin Vigilante. This is the most beautiful Bitcoin timepiece that I ever saw created by anyone. Look at that beauty. I love it so much. Coin Vigilante made a perfect Bitcoin watch. That's the perfect, subtle, elegant way to go out there and show that you are a Bitcoiner. And that watch brand is Bitcoin only. And Coin Vigilante just dropped a completely new and amazing Genesis edition of their watch collections. You have the date of the first ever mined Bitcoin block in there, and of course also the block height and which epoch we are currently in. I love the level of detail they put in this masterpiece, and make sure to check out those amazing Coin Vigilante timepieces down in the descriptions. I love those watches so much. If you watch or listen to my podcast on a regular basis, I guess you already bought some Bitcoin. And now the most important step is to keep the Bitcoin. Keep them secure in a hardware wallet. My personal recommendation for hardware wallet is the BitBox. It's super secure. It's simple to set up. It's also a perfect gift for a friend who has still their Bitcoin on an exchange. And you can get a 5% discount with the code Robin at the checkout. Visit bitbox.swiss/Robin to get your BitBox. And the next step is to really level up your sovereignty as an individual. You have to have the most secure self-custody setup. You have to secure your own devices. You have to protect your privacy. You have to set up an inheritance plan. And depending on where you live, you even want to have a plan B, a citizenship where you can move in case something goes really wrong. And through all those steps, the Bitcoin way is guiding you through step by step. And if you visit thebitcoinway.com/partners/Robin, you even get a 30-minute free call to find out how you can level up your sovereignty. The custody aspect is really interesting because you feel like, do we really come to the conclusion where everyone has self-custody, or like at least a good amount of people have self-custody? I sometimes wonder about that, if we actually come to the conclusion of like most people have self-custody, or if it's more like it's a niche thing where maybe 5, 10, 50% of the population will be in self-custody, and the rest just goes with exchanges and all the rest of the things.
Yeah, you got to hope that enough people, we need enough people to want to take custody, whether it be, single sig self-custody or multi-sig custody or multi-sig collaborative custody, and when I say custody, just your ability to move that Bitcoin whenever it is. You might have somebody helping you, or, somebody as a backup. And I think that's going to be the solution for most people, is like a collaborative custody solution where they have 2 of 3 and they always have somebody in the background to help them if they need it. As far as custody solutions, right? That you have control of. And we need enough people to do that.
Is Bitcoin failed if self custody is too niche?
No, it doesn't. I don't think it failed, but you still need enough people that want to take custody of it. You need a critical mass of people who want to take custody of it
And
in
it's
somebody
something,
else's hands. In somebody else's, if centralized entities custody everything, then it's just a transparent ledger. You get the transparency of knowing where your money is, but you don't have the ability to to do anything with it if push comes to shove, right?
yeah, like
So
you only have you might get exposure to a good store of value. I say might because you don't control it.
it's only a good store of value if a critical mass of people are willing to self custody it, right?
It's an interesting point. Yeah. I want to also talk a little bit. I mean, we talked about the politicians and stuff like that, but way more interesting for me is the, the central bank system and the root of all evil. How do you think this will develop in the coming years and decades? With an exit wealth being there with Bitcoin, people can actually opt out of that fiat system. I personally opted out almost entirely. I only use it if I really have to. So it's like if more and more people find that, and more people change to that system, the trust lost in the fiat system, and in the dollar, in the euro, and the yen, and all the rest of things could go down really quickly. Do you think that we might be able to actually see the downfall of fiat for real?
That's what we've been doing. That's the whole point, right? We're like in the, I don't know, second or third inning of this. I mean, this is what we're doing. We're trying to seed a unit of account that everybody can trust. And we're getting there slowly but surely. It's going to be very volatile, but that's what we're doing. Us Bitcoiners know that the fiat system is numbered. Their days are numbered. It doesn't work forever. It can work for a short amount of time, but it's flawed by human intervention, and humans always think they know better. And history shows that they can never manage these complex systems like economies and monetary systems, and it always it always inevitably failed. So that's what we're doing right now is we're seeding the system that hopefully mankind can trust in the future, and we'll have a unit of account that they can't screw with. Right now, everybody I know is keeping score in dollars, right? And it's the stupid when you mention to them that, hey, you're keeping score in something that somebody else has control of the quantity. I was like, I read that like 80% of the money was produced in the last 5 years. So I mean, unless you're worth 4x what you were in five years ago, in those dollars you're keeping score in, you lost value. 95% of the people that I interact with think that statement's crazy. Now, I can't tell you if there was 80% of the money was created in the last 5 years. I've read that on Twitter. I never fact checked it or anything. But if it is true, I mean, I think my statement is correct. If you're not really worth 4x what you were worth 5 years ago in dollars, you didn't really make anything. You think you did. And that's the scam, that they control the unit of account. So
they have to. I completely forgot that your Twitter handle is like unit of account maxi.
that's where I want to get.
I love that. I see the Bitcoin US dollar price as kind of a scoreboard, so that's why I like that you like the scoreboard of like how fast we're going to do that future of Bitcoin as the primary unit of account. Like obviously everyone can switch today, and I'm already trying to think in Bitcoin, but it's so hard because everything else is nominated in euros or dollars, like one of those two usually. So it's really hard to think of like, what would that purchase now be in Satoshis, or like, my net worth is that in Bitcoin. But if you count your net worth in not in Bitcoin, but in US dollar, it's way more like you feel better because in Bitcoin, there's a little bit coming, and it's more organic. It's probably better for your soul. But in US dollar, nice, see 2x this year.
What do you call it? Trace Mayer, a long time ago, I heard, he said he kept his balance sheet in dollars, gold, and Bitcoin. So at the end, he had the value in all three. And I started doing that about 5 years ago. And when you share that with your financial advisor or your banker, oh, look at them. It's so funny. And, be honest with you, I have, the last 5 years, I've accumulated more Bitcoin, but my value in Bitcoin's gone way down because of all my other assets went down in the value of Bitcoin, right? So if you do that for 5 years, you'll see that even though your dollar value goes up, your gold value and your Bitcoin value is going to go down, even if you're buying both of those items, because the fiat is just depreciating so fast. So that's why it's not a good unit of account. That's why it's not a good unit of account, because it's unlimited in supply.
And I think we should be. I see that sometimes with Bitcoiners that feel really good when the Bitcoin price is going up and feel really bad if the Bitcoin price goes down. I'm like, that it should be the other way around. Like, you want to accumulate as many Bitcoin as you can, so you should feel good. Like, I think I posted this today or maybe yesterday, I don't know. But there's this fear and greed index, and now it's total fear in Bitcoin. And I actually have the other way around, because I'm young, I'm now 26. So I really want to accumulate a lot of Bitcoin for my future generation and for my future life. So whenever the Bitcoin price goes up, and I was really fearful when it was 105, 106K. I was like, oh shit, are we going now to 200,000? Can I not accumulate a little bit more? And now it goes down, and I get the greed of where can I get more euros to buy more Bitcoin? I get a new sponsor to sponsor my show because I want to have Bitcoin. I really get that greed once it goes down, which is super interesting. And I think people that understand Bitcoin truly, and maybe excluding those who are right before retirement, they should actually feel like that.
When you're in your accumulation phase, right? That's the way you gotta think. You have to embrace the dips, right? Because you're gonna get the most sats for your dollar or euro. But then, as you could see on Twitter, you can kind of get a sense for the people that have been around for a while who aren't stacking anymore, and they or 90% everything in Bitcoin and keeping score in Bitcoin. That volatility in price still is very, very painful. So the only way this thing, works is if that volatility dampens, and it's not going to dampen until we get at much higher dollar prices. And until then, it's going to take, us retards to hodl. I mean, it's crazy. It really is. There's no way that most people could stomach, what we stomach. I mean, just this last week was extremely painful. And I think I've done one other podcast at a similar time where it was just after a nice big correction. And I got to go back and listen to it. But it still hurts, right? It still hurts, but I bought pretty good yesterday. So I know to think I've been in this situation long enough to know that there's going to come a day in the future where I'm going to say, you should have fucking stacked harder, man. Right?
It's super interesting because yesterday literally was probably a world buying day of Bitcoin for retail folks, because all the exchanges said like the volume was as high as we never saw, like the buying volume. And I have like, there are two Bitcoin only exchanges that I track on Twitter that is in Europe, like that's Relay and 21 Bitcoin. And both of them said, that's like record volume. I think 21 Bitcoin's like 3 million volume on their platforms, and Relay 4.5 million. So just those two small platforms in Europe moved 7.5 million into Bitcoin on one day, and that's retail folks buying the dip.
That's good to hear. That is good to hear. Yeah, I mean, you gotta you have to stomach it, and you have to embrace the dips, man. And don't, the exact same goes. Don't FOMO when everybody else is FOMOing in. There will always be a dip. This thing's never going to get away from us. It's going to trade like this until it doesn't trade like this, and at that point, it will be the unit of account. But we're, a long way away. And it's going to be fun if you can program your brain to embrace the volatility, boy. It's going to be fun, but you can't have any preconceived ideas of where this thing's going. I mean, we all, like, I have my wants, how I'd like to see this thing play out. I'd like to see this thing play out from the ground up, from the individual up. But it seems like now that, like, that might not happen. We might become more industrialized, institutionalized, but that's okay too. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. But it's also sometimes sad to see where big companies get it, and then if you're trying to explain it to regular folk, they're like, "Oh no, it's too volatile," and it's like, like, oh, that's why you are where you are. Like, you it's sometimes frustrating for me to get there. Like, it's super. I'm really grateful and glad that my family got it to the most part. But when I look in the further family of like distance family, it's like still so many stupid opinions on Bitcoin. I'm like, open your eyes, like look at the facts for more than 5 minutes, and then you might get it.
But you got, at this point, this has been my experience. At this point, Bitcoin's been mainstream. Everybody in America pretty much heard about Bitcoin in 2017. By that time, everybody heard about it, right? So, like, you either dug in and investigated it then when it was, below 10,000. There was a lot of years in there where we were below 10,000, and you either did the homework then and dug in, or you've just been watching it, in your peripheral and saying to yourself, fuck, I should have bought it. 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 Those people will probably stick their head in the sand the rest of their lives. Very few people will say, hey, I changed my mind. If they will only use Bitcoin when it becomes a necessity to use it. They will not, they will go to the grave saying, I don't believe in it. It's $500,000 a coin. I never believed in it. Well, you know what, asshole? You should have probably believed in it, because it could have made your life a lot easier. But you're going to have, that's going to be a big portion of the population, unfortunately. But
yeah, it's the point is good. Like, if you don't have Bitcoin now, it's kind of your fault. Like, if you're an adult right now who has extra cash flow to spend and you have some investments and you still did not look at Bitcoin, it's like it's your fault. But that's so great about Bitcoin. I don't know like how you came into Bitcoin. Maybe you can talk about that later. But I and so many others came into Bitcoin where they saw it previously, and then they had some time where they were aware about Bitcoin, but they thought they're like, oh, it will not work. Government will ban it. It's volatile and environment, like whatever your excuse is to not buy Bitcoin. And then at some point they like actually opened their eyes and like, oh, that was not true. Like, I have to change my mind. And from like any pleb that I talked to, up to like Michael Saylor, they all had a phase where they said like, oh, Bitcoin is bad. And then they're like, oh, Bitcoin is the best asset ever. So they all have to change their mind. That's what's so great about the community, where there are a lot of people in here that actually are able to change their mind and are actually able to think critical and also are open to new ideas, which is amazing to be in.
Yeah. So initially I heard about Bitcoin probably in like 2015, 16. Didn't think much of it. I think I had a gambling account that was closed and they offered to pay me in Bitcoin, but I didn't take it. I just took the USD. But then like in 2017, it was all over the news. It was going through. I got in at the very top. So it was December 31st, 2017. I was off on like Christmas vacation. I had some time to think and look over things, and somebody was willing to sit down with me and show me how to buy it. And I started buying it, and then I started watching stuff on YouTube, and then I wanted to mine it, and then I went down that whole rabbit hole and kept buying it, and was losing from day one. I wasn't up ever. You know what I mean? I bought every shitcoin known to man. Watched all those videos, went through all that, mined shit coins, and eventually found my way to listening to the right people in the space, meeting the right people. I went to a conference early on in San Francisco, got to meet like the people like Adam Back and BTC Sessions and other people, and just saw that it was for real. Real people were actually trying to make a currency that nobody could fuck with. And that's how I got into it. And I didn't see a fiat profit for a while. No.
Interesting. I like that. And this really built probably your conviction a lot, because you were down, so you had a.
Yeah, it was the best thing that ever happened. If I would have been up, knowing how I treated everything else in my life up to that point, I would have just chalked up a taxable gain and bragged about it if I was up, right? So the best thing that ever happened was that I, learned about it during a bear market and got involved at that point, rather than, making money right from Jump Street on it, because I would have definitely sold.
And also, I think if your investment is going down, you research more than if your investment is just going up.
Yes, 1,000%. You dig in. You're like, hey, I'm either going to take a big loss here, or I'm going to figure out what the fuck I bought. So, I knew nothing at that point. I still have some notes from back then when I first started, when I first learned about it, from that weekend, from that New Year's Eve weekend. And it's funny to read now. I was so shitcoined. I was, I had like a portfolio percentage of this shitcoin, that shitcoin. They all went to shit. That's why they call them shit coins.
I unfortunately don't have it anymore. Maybe I'll find it somewhere. But I had in 2020, I was in stocks a lot, and I also came across Bitcoin. It was like my discovery phase of Bitcoin. But the first half of the year, I did not really understand it. I was like, oh, it's interesting. Just like have it as a diversifier of my portfolio. And I made actually a Bitcoin video. And I cannot really remember what I said, but it was like a 20, 30-minute video where I just talked about Bitcoin. And I really want to find that video just to see how my overall thesis on Bitcoin changed, and to see how my overall thesis on investments in general changed within the last, like now almost 5 years when I got it back in the day. So that it's really interesting to document publicly, because you see how dumb you were in the past.
And there's a couple people on Twitter who keep track of your old tweets, and they bring them back up, and you remember how you were thinking then. And most of the times I'm pretty I'm okay with pretty much everything I've said. I don't regret saying anything I've ever said. I've always been pretty humble, come from a humble standpoint where, like, listen, I'm learning. If you know, there's a lot to learn. So you always got to be humble and stack sats, you know, and try to think from your future perspective, because up to this point, I've always, everything I've looked back. I mean, I remember like Bitcoin correcting from all different price levels, and every time it does, it feels like, fuck, this is it. We're going to zero. You were wrong every time, you know. And afterwards, you always have that regret. Like, why didn't I stack harder? Like, why didn't I buy at 17,000? Why didn't I buy when it went back down to 58? You know, why didn't I? So, and you gotta just keep stacking. That's a little at a time. Don't, oh, you know, I like to keep a cash reserve on the side for days like yesterday, where you know you can kind of make up. You can average down all your daily stacks from the month before, right? um, so that's worked for me, and I've been able to ride this.
Is it the DCA aspect the most important one that you have learned in the past years in Bitcoin?
I knew it before Bitcoin with other assets. So when I came into Bitcoin, I knew that was, and when I say I knew it, it's a personal thing. It's you know, a lot of people are best buying all at once, and other people are best buying a little at a time, whatever works for you. And for me, buying a little at a time and having a roadmap of doing that for say 10 years, um, that helps me, that helps me mentally, you know, ride it.
Interesting. Before we come to the end routine and the last questions of the day, I think you're really a straight shooter, so I'm really interested in what you say to that. What do you think is your most controversial opinion within Bitcoin?
Oh boy, I don't know. I think I said a pretty controversial thing before that a lot of Bitcoiners are like, "What are you, a fucking idiot?" But I would like our politicians to have to use Bitcoin. That's my goal, or that would be my dream.
It's still a long way, but I
Yeah.
hope we get there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm asked each and every one of my guests the same question at the end of the podcast. And the question is, what can we learn from you besides Bitcoin?
Have fun. Get a hobby and have fun, and don't look at the charts that much. You know, I keep myself occupied with other shit, and that has worked for me. Because the only thing Bitcoin doesn't need you. You don't need to advertise for Bitcoin. Stay safe. You know, like I tell my family members, you don't have to advertise. Stop wearing anything with Bitcoin. It doesn't need you anymore. Just be able to hold on, you know, figure out how to secure your shit, make sure your loved ones can access it, and have hobbies and live life. And that's it.
We have it's amazing. And we have an end routine in the podcast. And then today is a really interesting one. We have an end routine in the podcast where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest is. And the previous guest asked you have to hold, one thing for 10 years and you cannot hold anything else. Would you either hold 5 million Bitcoin in an ETF or 2.5 million Bitcoin in cold storage?
Number one, 2.5 million Bitcoins more than I'll ever be able to fucking spend. Right? So just give it to me that way. Just that's a good one.
I think we have to lower, like,
Yeah, then
would
if you brought that number down to like 10 and 20 Bitcoin, then it's, you know, it's a little bit more of a you have to think about it a little bit more. But
yeah, like maybe like 5 million Bitcoin, $5 million in Bitcoin in
or 10
ETFs,
million.
or like
Yeah.
or like 100,000
Yeah.
dollars in Bitcoin cold storage.
Yeah. Well, the ETF doesn't do you any good unless you can sell it. So
That's true. Yeah, that's very
yeah.
true. I would go with cold storage
Yeah.
any day because, like, at least I can control it and do what I want. I want with it. ETF, like, I don't want to be forced into that. Really cool. It was amazing to have you on. Before I let you go, where can people find you, ask you questions, reach out to you?
Twitter and Noster. So if you go to my Twitter feed at fartface2000, in my bio is my Noster key. So either one.
Really cool. Then I will link your Twitter down below, and with that, people also can find you in Austria. I love the fat face tooth fast. I think that I will remember.
Yeah, I'm not selling anything, so it's not a marketing ploy, bro.
Yeah, it's also interesting because now that I'm having the podcast, I get invited to speak at conferences and stuff like that, and I spoke today with one in Bulgaria. It will be, and he's like, oh, like we also have booths if you want to sell something. And I'm like, I don't even have something to sell.
All right.
It's like I'm just happy if people watch my podcast, and that's the main thing. But yeah, I like fat face. I read it today. I was like, funny. Is there any story to that, or you just was like, oh, like I'm a fat face?
Yeah. No, that was just a stupid thing I did. That was when like I first heard about Twitter and social media, like back 2000, I think 8 or 2009, and at that time, I didn't even think it would take root. I didn't even think social media was a thing. So I just was goofing around, and I created a user account. Really didn't use it at all until 2017.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like I just see you joined really early in like February 2011. It seems like
it was 2011.
Yeah, but yeah, it's so early. That's amazing.
Yeah, but like I said, I didn't use it until until 2017. I don't remember really using it before that, but it was so much fun. Thank you so much for thinking of me.
Cool. And also thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye.